And we're back yet again with the How to Fix Insert Team video series, and we're doing the New York Jets. They've had some interesting moves this season, trading Quinn Williams and Sauce Gardner, getting all those first-round picks. Clearly, they're putting themselves in position to make some big moves in the next two off seasons, and showing that Aaron Glenn, Tanner Eggstrand, Steve Wilkes, that they're all pretty safe in their job security. So, we'll see what they can build here. I think I had a lot of fun with, the free agency and the draft in particular. We're going to break down what their team currently kind of looks like going into the next season, without, guys that are going to be under contract at the start of the new league year. Internal moves, re-signings, restructurings, trades, cuts, how they can use their cap space to improve this team, and where they should be aggressive and maybe where they should be a little bit more conservative in trying to build out this roster, trying to find guys that fit into what they're doing, and maybe, guys that are in certain positions in their careers where coming to a team like the Jets, which is not the most desirable location right now, honestly, for players in free agency, for veteran players, how you can lure some of those guys in. But we're going to start with the current state of the team. Now, this coaching staff is one that I wasn't even that low on, I would say, if you go back to the deep dive series. Aaron Glenn as a first-year head coach, first-time head coach, wasn't ranked particularly low. I thought he was ranked pretty fairly in like the high 20s. Tanner Eggstrand, Steve Wilkes, I thought that this was an interesting staff that was put together that, if they were in it for the long term, could potentially build something pretty good. And I think it's very evident, despite the cringe face there that I got, it's very evident that based on them trading away Quinn Williams and Sauce Gardner, that there is a commitment here to the long-term vision of what Aaron Glenn in particular presented when he got hired as the head coach. And I think the roster has sort of reflected what my expectations were. They are last in passing yards per game. Justin Fields has had, I believe, 4, maybe 5 games this year where he's thrown for under 60 yards. Just not good. The running game has been fantastic, yards per game. Justin Fields mixed with Breece Hall. There was Braylon Allen for a bit there, Isaiah Davis, whoever. The offense is performing basically how it was expected to perform, I feel. The offensive line has been pretty damn good. Those tackles are fantastic. The young tackle duo, they look great. Joe Tippmann has done particularly well as also. Garrett Wilson is a star wide receiver that just doesn't have anyone to get him the ball. So the offense operates the way that I feel like I predicted. The defense, I think, is doing kind of the same. They're this middle of the pack defense. We'll see how much not having Quinn Williams and Sauce Gardner affects them negatively. I'm sure it will. I don't know how significant though. But middle of the pack defense overall. They get run on a lot because they're usually losing, which is fine. For right now, it's fair. It's a fair ranking in terms of what they're probably facing on a week-to-week basis. But they're not. They were always sort of lacking in talent, though, right? They had their 2 best players. They're not there anymore. Everyone else was kind of like these budding young talents or like these over-the-hill older talents. And when you have $99 million in cap at the start of the new league year, there's a lot of room to maneuver. I don't know if they're going to be the most sought-after free agency destination, but I think that they're also in a position to be incredibly aggressive in free agency to sort of lure these guys in, lure certain talents in, and we'll get to that. But it's not a team that is without bright spots, because they got a number of those. We talked about Garrett Wilson. That's a great foundational guy to have, considering they decided to keep him around. Brandon Stevens, surprisingly very good this season. He is not a good man coverage corner at all. But playing in the zone, I think he grades out as like a top 10 zone corner this year. So he's not particularly terrible. I think a lot of people, myself included, were expecting just this brutally like burnt toast level corner that they were just hoping would perform good enough as a cornerback too. And I think to a large degree, him and Sauce Gardner were pretty much interchangeable in how well they were playing. Now, is his ceiling that high? Probably not. You don't want him to be somebody that's going to be a high-end cornerback one or anything. He's not. You don't want him to be your cornerback one for the long term. You're going to want to add to that room, but I think he's been a surprisingly good, again, kind of foundational piece for that secondary. I think you say the same thing about Jamie and Sherwood for the linebacking group. I think he sort of falls in the same category that you have Brandon Stevens in right now, where when he's your linebacker one, you're kind of like, ugh. But if you bring in a guy in a situation that bumps him to linebacker two, then you're like, I got a pretty good linebacking group here. We got a pretty good 1-2 punch. So we'll see what they add there. You know, I think that there's pieces that can be added across all three of these position groups that could drastically improve them overall. And then you got two linemen here. We'll start on the defense side. Jawan Briggs came over from Cleveland, I believe. Cleveland or Cincinnati. One of those orange teams. I had one of the orange teams in Ohio. And he is a pending free agent, kind of. He's an ERFA because of, you know, his status this year as, you know, the rookie contract and all that, however the ERFA thing works. So I do expect him to stick around. They can keep him around on the cheap. I think he's been pretty good. I think he made things a lot more comfortable for them to move on from Quinnen Williams. So there is that. He's a good little young piece that sort of came out of nowhere. And then Armand Membu, their rookie first-round pick. Took him, 6th, 7th overall? Fantastic at the right tackle spot. Fantastic right tackle. Him and Olu Fashanu, like I said there, looking like they're going to be a really good combination with each other. All the promise in the world for Armand Membu, and he's a really good building block for this defense. Year two, you know, with a more confident quarterback, hopefully, a more competent passing quarterback, we'll see some improvements there as well. But this team is not one without duds either. Justin Fields, the ultimate dud, to be honest. I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. And I think at some point now, the Justin Fields truthers just kind of got to face the facts here that it's been the same story for him through three organizations. And he doesn't see the field well at all. He is very unconfident in the pocket, bails out of clean pockets regularly, and his athleticism only gets him so far. And without the arm talent, he's at best a NFL backup on a very specific system. I mean, for me, I would love to see him be the backup in Baltimore, maybe the backup in Washington in particular, because he really is, for all intents and purposes, the poor man's version of both of those quarterbacks in both of those systems. His overall box score stats lie a lot. Like I said, he's thrown for under 60 yards in a game at least four times this year. And I think in at least three of them, he played all four quarters. So you can't even be like, oh, well, he was hurt and he didn't play. No, he's terrible. And it's a hill that I don't think is unreasonable to die on at this point. He's just not a good quarterback. He's just not good. The other thing that hasn't been great for the Jets has been the pass rush. Though I do think that they have some really, with Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson. Jermaine Johnson, another one that was rumored to get traded. He didn't, so it looks like he's sticking around, which I think is fine. I think you need to give it some time to develop there, because I do think they're two very good young pieces. I think you need a healthier rotation, though, around them, so you're not just burning them out and they're not putting the weight of the world on both of those guys. So they are first-round picks. They got to start really performing like it. I think adding some depth pieces to that edge room will help out, and I think also improving the interior. Juwan Briggs and Harrison Phillips have been a fine 1-2 punch, but I think getting somebody else on the interior would be beneficial. And I think the third one is just the overall team morale. I think that they don't seem like a highly motivated team right now. And I think that's where a lot of the Aaron Glenn is on the hot seat talk is coming from. But I think the trade sort of quelled that to a large degree. But I do think they just sort of need to reset everything. Them not loving the quarterback class coming in and going with Justin Fields, I think Jackson Dart has made them feel a little bit foolish about that. But other than that, then there really wasn't another quarterback out there for them anyway. We'll see what they do in the upcoming. I don't know that they take a quarterback in the draft. I just think that there's a lot of guys who are not overly excited to be there that kind of just need to be dismissed from the roster. I think Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner maybe were falling into that category. I think Breece Hall, I used this picture there, I think, because he kind of falls into that category as well. Garrett Wilson's still under contract, so get him a quarterback that can get him the ball that's halfway competent, and I think that it'll change his morale trajectory. But I think you just need to sort of reset everything and rebuild the energy in the building. And right here to let you guys know, still don't have any ads. I need you guys, if you're watching on mobile, hit the hype button. There's a hype button now on some mobile devices. On my mobile device, it's there. On my girl's mobile device, it's not there. I don't know. If it's there, hit it. Hit it 3 times. You can hit it 3 times. It helps me. It helps me out. And then like and subscribe so you don't miss any of the future videos. And I just really, really, really wish that I was making money on this, so then that way I could do more of it. So help me do more of it, please. Even if you think I'm an idiot, I would love to keep doing more of this. Let's get back to the video. Take a look at what the offense currently would look like going into the next offseason. The guys that are under contract that we know for sure will be there. And Justin Fields still under contract. The running back situation, who the starting running back is going to be, would be up in the air. That would be a position that they'd have to look at. Number 1 receiver, number 1 tight end is figured out with Wilson and Taylor as it stands. But you still need to work on who is the number 2 receiver, who's your slot receiver. There's some open spots there. Fashanu and Membu got those tackle spots, I think, locked down for the time being. And then you got Joe Tippmann there at center. He's played some guard with Josh Myers, but the interior of the offensive line can be shuffled around still. John Simpson, Elijah Vera-Tucker, Josh Myers, they're impending free agents as well, so we'll see what they sort of work out in that sense. But there are some significant spots here where they can build through the draft. They got a lot of draft capital. They got a lot of cap space. They can build around this. And, of course, the upcoming free agents, like we talked about, Breece Hall, John Mechie, Alan Lazard, John Simpson, Josh Myers, Elijah Vera-Tucker. Elijah Vera-Tucker, just unfortunately, the injuries in his career have sort of really hurt him and what he can be for this team. And I don't know that he's somebody that'll stick around. I think Josh Myers and John Simpson have a real opportunity to be brought back. I don't know that Mechie, or I don't know that Lazard gets brought back at all. I highly doubt that. I think of the 3 skill position players there on the offense, John Mechie's the most likely one for them to bring back. We'll see what kind of contract they can potentially work out with him. But I don't think that there's any real priority here for those 2 wide receivers. And I don't think Breece Hall is interested in coming back either. And I don't think they're necessarily interested in bringing him back, sort of let him walk away. On the defense, it's sort of an interesting story as well here. You got your defensive ends, your edge rushers locked in there. Harrison Phillips still under contract. Juwan Briggs is a bright spot, but he is technically a free agent. So they could decide not to bring him back. I don't know why they would, but they could decide that. Jamie Sherwood at linebacker. They're looking for another linebacker. Quincy Williams is in a void year, I believe, of his contract. Brandon Stevens and Malachi Moore are really the only 2 starting secondary players that you have there. There's a lot of Andre Sisco, Isaiah Oliver, like all these guys are pending free agents at this point. So there's a real, especially in the secondary, a huge rebuild that's about to occur this upcoming offseason from the Jets. And like we talked about, some of the impending free agents there, Oliver, Tony Adams, Andre Sisco, all pending free agents here. Then Quincy Williams, you got Kalen Saunders on the interior, and Michael Clemens, a significant rotational guy on the edge who had some good moments as a run defender, and I just think that he's just not somebody that they're going to be worth keeping around, I'll say that. So here are some of the internal moves. I think that, John Simpson, from a leadership perspective, I like the idea of bringing him back just to fill one of the guard spots with some experience in leadership and good locker room. Simpson had a great year last year. Sort of came back down to earth this year a little bit. But I think that, you don't want to lose the total interior of your offensive line. I think that he's a good one to choose. He's a good short-term option. You can get him a little bit cheaper. I think Josh Myers will command a little bit more money in free agency. I think center is a rare position coming up in the draft. I think guards will sort of draw less money in free agency this year because I think the guard class has become shockingly improved. I like the idea of bringing back Andre Sisco just, again, as a depth piece there. Get him in, keep him in there, keep him in that rotation in the safety room. You don't want to completely throw out the entire safety room and have all these new pieces in there, a lot of inexperience. You want to have some guy in there that has some experience. And then Jawan Briggs, the exclusive free agency tag. Of course, it's only $885,000. Why not just keep him around? And then, you can get him on that tag, I think, for the next couple of years. So no restructuring is really required. They have so much money available and not a lot of big contracts to really restructure. So the one is going to be cutting Justin Fields. Give him a post June 1st designation, and it'll save you $10 million in cap as well that you can flip into paying somebody else. Like I said, they're in a position to be very aggressive, and I think they are going to have to be particularly aggressive and really go after some of these free agents and potentially overpay a couple of guys and get some more of the veteran types. But I'll start with the big one. The big one that you see there is the trade, and I'm trading the 105th overall pick in a 2027 third round pick to San Francisco for Mac Jones to come in and be the starting quarterback. And I'm going to extend him through 2027 to keep him on the roster for when we inevitably have a rookie quarterback on here. Spoiler alert, I've said it in mock drafts before. I don't think that this is the year the Jets go quarterback. I think a lot of the quarterbacks in this draft have sort of let down to a large degree. So I don't think that there's going to be some high-level draft capital day one or day two where the Jets go quarterback. I think that's something they're going to save for next year when they have 3 first-round picks to be overly aggressive and to make sure they get a top quarterback prospect. I think Mac Jones has done a great job this year of playing well within a system, and when he gets into a quarterback-friendly system, that's it's worked out for him. And I think that you can bring him in here. He's a low-risk guy. I think from a passing perspective, he's a much better passer than what you get in Justin Fields. And I think he will just fit what Tanner Eggstrand would want to do a little bit more. Just be smart with the ball. Play on time, stay on schedule. But you do have to surround him with some talent here. So I am going to go and get Kenneth Walker on a 3-year, $33 million deal. I think that's a pretty good contract for him. He's had some injury concerns in his career, but he's still, up there with some of the other top running backs in the league. And I'm going to get wide receiver Juwan Jennings, who's a free agent from San Francisco as well. Get a guy in there that Mac has some chemistry with. He's built some chemistry with. Jennings is someone that you are going to have to potentially overpay. 3-year, $70 million deal. I believe that's very close to what Deebo Samuel got. Again, you are a bad team with not a lot of... In a city where you're city where there's another team that I think a lot of people are going to be attracted to wanting to go to if the Giants decide to be aggressive in free agency. But if they don't, then, you're sort of going to have an opportunity where I think there's going to be positions that you need in free agency, the positions of need that you're going to be able to fill that sort of play into your hand here. And I think Walker and Jennings are a good example of that. Then on the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to get two guys that Aaron Glenn is very comfortable with, has some history with back in Detroit. DJ Reader, 3-year, $51 million. Again, it's an overpay. It is an overpay, but you have the money to spend. And you can spread it out with some void years and stuff. DJ Reader at the other end of his career here. This will be, you can look at Reader and be like, this is the last contract you'll sign in the NFL, and we'll spread you out 2 extra years and void years to spread the pain out a little bit. And then Marcus Davenport, a direct replacement for Michael Clemens. It's somebody that Aaron Glenn liked, back in New Orleans and then in Detroit. He's somebody that I think fits what he wants to do. And if he can just stay healthy, he can be part of a rotation there on the edge for this team. And then linebacker Christian Harris, 3-year, $25 million. Again, bringing in some linebacking help. You would love for it to be Alex Anzalone and just get him right back there, but I don't know how many of these Detroit defensive players that are going to hit the market are going to just run back into the arms of Aaron Glenn. And then Jonathan Jones on a 2-year, $16 million deal. Him sort of like DJ Reader. You pay him a little bit more than anyone else is going to offer him just to get him in the room, and then he sort of finishes out his career, you would think, with you. Both those guys are over the age of 32, I believe, at this point. And Jones can play in the slot. He can play outside. He's got experience in multiple different systems, so I think he can be a real asset for this team. And even when you do all this, this extending of the deals, you're going to have about $48 million in cap space if you spread these. If you spread this out well. I think it also opens you up to be able to front load a lot of these deals. Which then makes these contracts easier to get out of later because you are overpaying for, I would say, at least 3 of these guys. So to open yourself up to be able to get out of these deals, front load the contracts, front load the guaranteed money. I think would be a good strategy for the Jets. I think also help them in getting a lot of these guys to come in. Front load these deals, give you guys lots of money right out the top, and then maybe we cut you and you're still able to go sign another contract somewhere else and make some more money there. I think that will be a really interesting selling point for them coming free agency. And then here comes the mock draft, and this was an interesting one to do because I was like, I'm not going quarterback. So it's a lot of it's going to be like just sort of, I guess, best player on the board at the time that I'm making the pick. And, it started with Caleb Downs, who getting to 5 isn't out of reason. And him coming in and being a building block in that secondary, I think is incredibly realistic and likely for a guy like Aaron Glenn to want to do. I think Steve Wilkes would love to have him there as well. Then you got your second first-round pick. I took Oliva Vega-Ione from Penn State, the guard. He'll play the right guard spot. So I think you've got some guys in your secondary. You've added Jonathan Jones in free agency. You've got Caleb Downs here. I added Chris Johnson in the second round with the second of their second-round picks. So you've got some guys now to play around with, some young talent to mix in there with Brandon Stevens and Andre Sisco and Malachi Moore. I added Elijah Surratt to sort of round out the 3-man wide receiver group with Wilson, Juwan Jennings, and then Elijah Surratt. Jennings can play in the slot with Surratt and Wilson on the outside. So now I think you got a really good weapons group overall with Kenneth Walker at running back, Braylon Allen coming back off of that injury, with Wilson and Surratt and Jennings and Mason Taylor. It's a good little group. You've rounded out the offensive line, bringing back John Simpson. Ione goes to the right guard spots. Now you got your 5 offensive linemen. So I think here in the first 2 days of the draft, you've rounded out the offense. You've rounded out the secondary. You've done a nice little rebuild of the weapons group in the secondary. Then you get to day 3, and now you're just sort of rounding out where you want some depth to occur. And Anto Saka, the edge rusher from Northwestern, comes in, joins Davenport, Will McDonald, Jermaine Johnson. Mark Fletcher comes in. He can be your running back 3. Braylon Allen, how quickly does he recover from the injury? Does he get back to where he wants to be? And you've also sort of positioned yourself with Kenneth Walker, who does have an injury history as well, that having some more running back depth could be incredibly beneficial. Emil Wagner from Notre Dame at tackle. Add another corner in Josh Moten from Southern Miss. Lander Barton, linebacker from Utah. You need some linebacker depth as well. You kind of only got Christian Harris and Jamie Sherwood in this scenario. So maybe find a diamond in the rough there in the 7th round. And then Jaron Kanak from Oklahoma, tight end, again, some tight end depth. Jelani Woods, I think, is a free agent coming up. So you don't really have anyone outside of Mason Taylor for the most part in the tight end room. But I think you can use a lot of this draft capital that you got to really get some interesting pieces in there to instantly improve your team. They're one of those teams where they're in a great position to use the draft in particular to have some instant contributors. Even going into day 3 with Saka, Fletcher in particular, maybe even Josh Moten gets an opportunity to win out a spot. So all things considered, the 2026 offense would look like this. Mac Jones is your new quarterback. Kenneth Walker, your starting running back. Your wide receiver room, Garrett Wilson, Juwan Jennings, and Elijah Surratt, with Mason Taylor at tight end. Your offensive line from left to right, Olu Fashanu, John Simpson, Joe Tippmann at center. Oliva Vega, Ione at right guard, and then Armand Membu at right tackle. And your 2026 defense would be Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson coming off the edge, with DJ Reader and Juwan Briggs on your interior defensive line. Linebackers, Sherwood and Harris. With the secondary, your corners, Brandon Stevens and Chris Johnson on the outside. I would slide Jonathan Jones there into the slot. And then you got Malachi Moore and Caleb Downs as your safeties. So what do you think? Did I fix the New York Jets? I know I didn't make them a Super Bowl contender. They're just way too far away from doing that in any type of realistic way. But do you think that I put them on course to, be really good again? To be like those AFC Championship teams from 15 years ago? What do you think? Do you think Aaron Glenn and that staff is even capable of doing it? What do you think of Mac Jones? Is Mac Jones getting another shot to be a starter here? Is it a good idea? What do you think of the quarterback class coming in? Because I think that kind of determines how you feel about not going quarterback with 2 first-round picks, including one in the top 5 as it currently stands. But I will love to see that in the comment section below. Please thumbs up the video, even if you hated it. It pushes out the algorithms for me. Subscribe if you haven't already so you can see more mock drafts, more how to fix this franchise. Insert franchise. I think we're going to do the Raiders next, so there's that. And then, of course, the Deep Dive series, which will come in the spring. I got all this stuff. Watch all the stuff. It's going to pop up soon for you guys to even look at. So I will see you guys with the next video next time. Thanks for coming.